Alex, Anna Alex. I am the CEO of Orca Oshi Capital. Shout out to my partner Rani, BTS behind the scenes, and an electronic dance music DJ. We are going to dive right in. I did not take my Adderall, so if my brain seems like a grasshopper, just bear with me. Let's start with the Federal Reserve's decision. Jerome Powell, Habibi, the Carlyle Group. I don't understand why the man is so dovish. The Federal Reserve needs a Volcker. I was not even a former fetus or future fetus when Volcker was around. However, what was articulated to myself and to the globe is Mr. Powell cares more about the stock market than he does the actual United States economy. For those who do not know, the interest rates should match inflation targets. Therefore, we're fucked because in no way, shape, or form is a 1.9 interest rate per 365 days going to in any way, shape, or form put a dent in arguably 8 to 20% inflation pending where you live and with whom you look for research. Moving on. So I'm very glad you all held me accountable. I said 0.25. I do want to add a caveat. They nuanced it a bit by saying 0.25 / 0.5. Makes me think there could be a bit of a disruption, if you will. And I just want to give a shout out and a hug to the St. Louis Fed Reserve man, Bullard. I don't know if I'm pronouncing his name right. Thank you, sir. Thank you for being of sound mind and having a pair of balls. I appreciate it. Hopefully we have someone like myself running it one day if America even exists at this point. Speaking of which, China. As someone who is a voracious reader, researcher, and all things finance excite me, we are at the end of the long-term debt cycle, meaning our dollar is in jeopardy as a world reserve currency. Are we going to allow these central bank digital currencies, such as the yuan, to dominate? I want to give an example where the yuan is being used instead of the dollar in means of Russia, and China's the largest trading country. So are we going to just say, okay, we wish you well, because that is the sentiment in which I get. And I am not okay with it. Our standard of living will be lowered. We are already a photoshopped version of Venezuela. And I'm very concerned, not as an American, as an Israeli, I'm very excited. I personally have a hypothesis and hold me to it. I want to always be held accountable so I can learn if my projections are wrong. I believe India and Israel are going to be an emerging market when things are said and done. But je suis désolée pour les jeunes sans Amérique. I feel very sad for many people in America who do not even know or understand their credit cards, mortgages are about to go up pending on the type of loans and personal loans they have. Remember, when rates are hiked, the APR from any type of lending goes up. So let's go back to China and Russia. Again, I want to always bring up how interesting I find it that Evergrande defaulted on its international bonds, I want to say about September 21st of 2021, fact check me. And I find it interesting, Russia said in the form of counter sanctions, they just won't pay their bonds back. However, shout out to Jamie Dimon. Let's give Jamie Dimon credit where his credit is due. He is the CEO of JP Morgan. He was a massive part of the troubled asset relief program back in 2008. And it looks as though Russia paid JP Morgan 110, I don't remember if it's million or billion, who's counting at this point. It was low, so I want to say more million, but don't take my word, because again, we're going straight from my noggin, no notes. However, the Evergrande crisis of China, 28% of China's property market, GDP, gross domestic product, is real estate. Evergrande, the second largest real estate developer, kaput. And within the same time span, Russia, bonds, debt, etc., Putin said in the form of a counter sanction will not be paid back. So is this coincidence? Is it coincidence that China, by December 2021, stockpiled half the world's grain supply, and the Ukraine just so happens to be one of the largest exporters of grain? Will that cause our cereals, bread? For all of those who have a self-diagnosed gluten allergy, good for you. You guys will be the true winners of the grain shortage. I want to know Evergrande, Fantasia, Cynic, and then Russia bonds, BlackRock losing 17 billion, which is nothing, because let me put in something into perspective. BlackRock manages assets under management 10 trillion. So Mr. Larry Fink is not losing any fucking sleep at night. However, if your 401k or pension funds hold some Russian debt, you might want to check. Or Evergrande or any of the massive Chinese property developers, being that China so eloquently crashed their market, very well curated, with in synergy with Russia within the next 6 months. And they have the de-dollarization project they started in 2014. The fact Saudi Arabia, and I have nothing but respect for Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. I think he's an extraordinary leader. I think he's taking Saudi Arabia into the right direction, is talking about using the digital yuan versus the dollar for oil. This, in my opinion, is an existential threat to Americans, and I've not heard one speak on it. So, for those who don't know this, I suggest The Seven Sisters by Anthony Sampson. Again, as a book reader, I love books. Anthony Sampson seems to have been my favorite professor, being I'm self-taught. However, I'm very concerned. The KSA and USA Aramco used to be an extraordinarily beneficial relationship. KSA USA, the KSA Saudi Arabia and Arabia feels as though the USA has turned its back. Therefore, they're doing this. There's something called OPEC Plus as well. However, Aramco is arguably the most important oil company in the world. The biggest is Russian. The most influential is Aramco. So what happens now when Aramco potentially takes the digital yuan into the dollar? Because Americans want to focus on feelings of a specific journalist who, if you read From Lebanon to Lockheed, was part of the arms bazaar, whose family was part of the arms bazaar. In no way, shape, or form am I condoning violence. However, I do believe people need to look at a bigger picture versus selective outrage. I support the Middle East. As someone who is making Aliyah to Israel, I look forward to working with my brothers and sisters to advance every type of technology. Speaking of which, let's talk about digital assets. Bitcoin, I am disappointed in you. Bitcoin is being the boyfriend right now that I never wanted to date. 2016 was so fun for Bitcoin, and even all the way out before the pandemic. As someone who has an affinity for digital asset management, who cried my way learning API code and just even what a GPU just I can't even believe I can pronounce certain words. With that said, I am very devastated Bitcoin is trading linear to the New York Stock Exchange. It is a good hedge against inflation. Orca, my equity fund, and my partner Ronnie, we move digitally. Make it move with us. I'm thinking of doing some sort of initiative where I can teach you all how to move code that you create yourself in the form of a cold wallet. However, congrats to the stock being up since November 2020. I want to say about 8%. because the Fed just hiked it 0.25 and Bitcoin went right up with it. So I'm unhappy with Bitcoin. Let's go to the next thing, which is a class action lawsuit against Coinbase. And to that I say amen. Brian Armstrong, don't come for me. However, this is what happens, sir, when you pay women less, you pay blacks less, you partner with Dorsey, who censors conservatives, you censor Black Lives Matter, and the fact you have a lobbying group with Fidelity you started last April, along with a fund, I have an issue with, because you want to talk shit about each other. Him and Jack Dorsey, yeah, you guys are very linear to divide and conquer. However, I find it very interesting. The class action lawsuit towards Coinbase has, I want to say 70 coins, about 50 to 70. Again, we're going off my noggin, so my numbers might not be accurate, stating they were not told these are similar to government regulated securities. Yikes. If this dickhead, and for those of us who use GDAX Pro, gets our beautiful Bitcoin, who, by the way, I believe in, once people get tired and sick of it, we'll get back into our normal phase. And most people are starting to understand they do not have the luxury to treat cryptocurrencies as the virtual MGM casino. However, if these assholes get us regulated, I am going to be heated. Now, let's talk about what I call crypto fascism. Central bank digital currencies. I think the fuck not. Unless I create a wallet that will toggle in between centralized and decentralized. As someone who is a minority, the importance of blockchain technology is peer-to-peer transactions. For example, if I want to buy a home and I need to get a loan, or I don't need a loan, I don't need to go to a third party. I can truly make a deal with the homeowner via digital currencies that are decentralized on the blockchain. Think of a massive conga line. Dun, 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 dun. That thing, you see? And just picture that. Now, I don't want to go to a third party, being I've been discriminated against personally by banks and had to reach out to them. Digital assets, as a digital asset manager, are equitable financial opportunities. Central bank digital currencies override that because the government then has access to everything. So we might even have banks, but the damn government, Federal Reserve, which is supposed to be a private, public, yet separate entity, is now going to be in charge of all this? Oh, nay. Jerome Powell, and let me say this, I am someone who would humbly step into the Fed tomorrow and speak my piece and whatever would be needed to apply for his position if he would resign. I don't know if I can I dress like this? I think most Americans give a fuck about inflation and jobs and being that we're going from Steve Jobs to no jobs than a man in a suit talking. I believe America does not give a damn about my health. In essence, I believe Americans want something done now. For example, pulling restrictions off of pipelines, per se, hypothetically, allegedly. But by damned, we want a Federal Reserve with a bit more balls. They made a piss poor policy by allowing quantitative easing and lowering rates the first time in a decade, July 2019, the 30th, 31st. And they did not hike them in time. What's going to happen when the Fed Reserve begins to, and again, I'm standing up. Is this okay? Is this the new Fed Reserve? The future finance is female, right? I would roll up in there, but I can promise you all this. The mortgage-backed securities and Walmart debt would have already been sold. The plunge protection program needs to stop. And I'm very curious when Mr. Powell and friends are going to realize we don't know how many foreclosures there are. We have mortgage forbearances. There is about to be more inventory on the housing market because people cannot afford to live. 50% of corporations polled, they want their workers to go back to work. So what happens to the people who got rid of their homes, moved out of the suburbs because they had remote work, and now they have to go back to the office. Uh-oh. Not to mention the ones who moved and didn't sell their homes. Uh-oh. Oh, fuck. That's not good. So what do we do? More inventory into the housing market. The 30-year fixed rate is about 4.7. Again, don't text me because I'm going off my noggin. Sometimes accurate, sometimes makes mistakes because I am not a perfect human being. And I think it's time the financial sector starts saying they're imperfect as well. But we're going to see inventory in the housing market because right now we do not even know the mortgage forbearances, people that are delinquent, and I've not been able to find that information. Drop it in the C section below if you can. So we have China and Russia experimenting with digital currency, with centralized central bank digital currencies, digital yuan. We have America wanting to build a digital yuan. And let me just say this, America, we can't build things for shit. So if I need to go to the Fed to get some damn good programmers, because most of the good programmers are like myself, except I'm not a good programmer. I'm very good at software conceptualization, and this is why I respect someone like Larry Ellison, to know I don't have to know it all to be able to execute software and projects that are very lucrative. However, America cannot even build a road, so we're supposed to trust them to build a dollar. I don't see how that's going to be very good or plausible. We cannot even fix our fucking roads. And so now America is going to be quite ambitious to try to play catch up with China. I find it absurd America's threatening or even having a conversation with China about sanctions. Like, President Xi is a modern day Mao. We can do a whole segment on who Mao was. He gives Hitler a run for his money, and as a Jewish person, I can say that. But this guy, President Xi, doesn't give a fuck. The president of China does not care. I am so over people saying, oh, China's disavowing war. Okay, but they have jet planes over Taiwan, and they've never given a fuck about anything with this man. President Xi is a modern day Mao. He is very good at manipulation, and I just don't understand how anybody can even give any type of for that man. I am disturbed. People are clapping and cheering for China. I will say the 30 million people who just essentially were put on hold or paused because of their COVID outbreak again is not too many, being that they have over 1 billion people in their population. Sometimes the media will publish numbers to scare people. However, we did lose another 214,000 jobs, first time unemployment claims this week. You guys, we are purging jobs and Steve Jobs to no jobs, and we have no innovation. There is no incentivization. Is that a word? If not, I just made it up. Let's go with it. And in China, everything is made from there. Taiwan, semiconductors. I know the neon in Ukraine is very much needed to make semiconductors that go into things. And where'd we go wrong, America? We have to figure it the fuck out. It is our job to figure it the fuck out so we don't lose our autonomy as a free country. And I am very concerned that not only is our dollar going to devalue, but we are already so devalued as a nation. It's time you get off the intersectional divisiveness train and jump on the financial train. Finance does not give a fuck about feelings, okay? So put the feelings aside, let's look at the facts and come up with some sort of game plan, because at the end of the day, we should all be Team USA if you're from America and if you're an ally of America. And if you're not, then maybe I can convince you to be. But it's hard for me to convince myself right now. I am not seeing one good thing coming from our country, except several people wanting to make change in the form of digitalized blockchain technology that is different than a central bank digital currency. Let me repeat that. Centralized, central bank, decentralized, two different things. And I find it almost crypto fascism. to throw support behind a central bank digital currency. So with that said, I love you all. And I have Shatem Te Amo, Bisu Besu Bachi. Pray for me. And on the part of Vicente Santos, pray, je suis malade. And I love you all. God bless you all. Please prepare for this recession. It is going to be the worst global depression we've ever seen. It's the first time every country's been on a fiat system, and we don't know. However, we should all be working together and paying attention, walking close to God, doing everything we can. 5G broadband's interesting. I would argue autonomous vehicles and roads and infrastructure, technological infrastructure, are going to be more lucrative in relation to investments. That's a personal opinion. Orca does not give financial advice. However, be safe, be cautious, never invest more than you can afford to lose. I love you all. God bless.